The first sign that something was wrong came when Commander Threx calmly informed Elias that an alien scientist was waiting outside Laboratory 3 and refusing to speak to anyone except him. "She says it is a biological emergency," the commander added. "Possibly contagious." Elias nearly dropped his nutrient coffee. Contagious meant paperwork. It meant quarantine. It meant at least 6 forms that required signatures in 3 different atmospheric conditions. He sighed, set the mug aside, and walked toward the lab door with the quiet dread of a man who knew his morning had just been destroyed. When the door slid open, he found her standing perfectly still in the center of the room, posture straight, silver eyes alert, hands clasped behind her back like she was presenting herself for inspection. Dr. Lyra Valen did everything with precision. She spoke in carefully measured sentences. She blinked less than anyone he had ever met. In the years since she had arrived from the Ketheri Union, Elias had never once seen her look uncertain. Until now. "Human Elias," she said quietly. That was the second sign something was very wrong. She never used his species as a title unless she was nervous. "Dr. Valen," he replied. "Commander said you might be. Something is malfunctioning inside my body." He stopped. There were few phrases less comforting on a multi-species station. "All right," he said slowly, already shifting into professional xenobiologist mode. "Let's not panic. Tell me your symptoms." She stepped closer. Then closer again. Elias resisted the urge to step back. "Mostly. My cardiac rhythm accelerates when you enter a room," she said. "My dermal nerves produce a tingling sensation. My cognitive clarity decreases by approximately 17%. 17? I ran 3 trials." Of course she did. He gestured toward a chair. She ignored it. "When did this start?" he asked. "Approximately 6 weeks ago. Shortly after you assisted me with recalibrating the atmospheric spectrometer. That was just a loose valve. You smiled at me afterward." "Yes?" She lowered her voice. The symptoms intensified. Elias stared at her. His brain immediately began sorting possibilities. Allergic reaction? No shared biochemistry. Environmental cross-contamination? Unlikely. Radiation? The station would already be screaming about it. Parasite? He tried not to visibly shudder. "Have you experienced dizziness? Fever? Hallucinations?" "Yes." He froze. "You are currently causing the dizziness," she added helpfully. "Right. Good. Wait, what?" She lifted her wrist and tapped her diagnostic band. A small display flickered to life. "My pulse has increased 12% since you opened the door. That could just be anxiety," he said. "I am not an anxious individual." True. Last month, she had calmly continued a presentation while the fire suppression system flooded the room with foam. She studied his face with unsettling intensity. "Human Elias, you make my body feel strange." He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Before he could respond, she extended her hand toward him. "Please touch me so I may confirm." The sentence landed with the weight of a meteor. "Touch you? My hand will suffice." "Oh. Good. Yes. Hands are standard." He told himself this was medicine. Science. Entirely professional. He reached out and lightly took her hand. It was warmer than he expected. Her fingers tightened instantly. She inhaled sharply. Then went completely still. "Symptoms critical," she whispered. He nearly yanked his hand back. "Critical? Should I call medical?" "Negative," she said quickly, though she did not let go. "Remain where you are." Her eyes fluttered once. "Remarkable," she murmured. Elias' brain, normally so reliable, had begun producing nothing but static. After several long seconds, she released him and began tapping notes into her band. "What exactly qualifies as critical?" he asked. "My internal temperature has risen. Neural activity is elevated. I am experiencing an unfamiliar lightness," That sounds pleasant. It is profoundly distracting. He dragged a hand down his face. All right. We're going to approach this logically. She nodded, clearly relieved he was taking charge. Logic was safe. Logic was structured. Logic did not involve whatever just happened. He crossed to the workstation and activated a holopad, pulling up a blank chart. At the top he typed, "Possible causes of strange body phenomenon." Underneath he listed, "Radiation exposure, atmospheric incompatibility, neuroparasite, undocumented Kethery maturation cycle, unknown human side effect." He refused to consider any option that sounded remotely emotional. "Have these symptoms occurred with anyone else?" he asked. "No. Only me." "Yes." He swallowed. "Do they worsen with proximity?" "Yes." "Define worsen." She stepped forward again, until barely half a meter separated them. Her band chimed immediately. She glanced down. "My pulse is now 20% above baseline." He took a careful step backward. The chime softened. Fascinating. Also mildly alarming. "All right," he said, slipping fully into research mode. "We'll treat this as a controlled diagnostic process." She brightened noticeably. "You will assist me?" "Of course. That's what humans do. Solve problems." There was a brief pause. "I am relieved," she said quietly. "If this is an illness, I would prefer not to experience it alone." Something about that tugged unexpectedly at his chest. He ignored it. "For now, minimize stressors," he said. "Stay hydrated. Avoid extended exposure to whatever triggers the response." She tilted her head. "You are the primary trigger." "Right. Yes. We'll schedule exposure." Her expression turned thoughtful. "Structured proximity trials would produce cleaner data." He blinked. "Exactly what I was thinking." They stood there for a moment, the air humming softly through the station vents. Then she said, almost shyly, "You should know, the symptoms intensify when you smile." He immediately stopped smiling. She watched him, then added, "That also appears to disappoint me." His brain short-circuited again. Definitely neurological, he decided. Possibly contagious. He cleared his throat. "I'm going to open a research file. Purely medical." She nodded. "Project designation?" He hesitated. Then typed, "Project, Strange Body Phenomenon." She studied the title with approval. A quiet moment passed before she asked, "If the condition proves persistent, will you remain available for testing?" The answer came out far too quickly. "Yes." They both froze. Neither acknowledged it. Her band chimed once more. She glanced down, then back up at him. "The symptoms are intensifying again." He sighed softly, realizing with a sinking certainty that whatever this was, it was not going to be a quick fix. And for reasons he could not yet explain. He wasn't entirely sure he wanted it to be. By the next morning, Elias had convinced himself that the situation was firmly under control. This was science. Science had procedures. Procedures had emotional distance. Emotional distance was currently the only thing keeping his brain from replaying the phrase "please touch me so I may confirm" every 12 seconds. He arrived at Laboratory 3 carrying 2 tablets, a portable scanner, and the determined expression of a man pretending he was not nervous. Lyra was already there. Of course she was. She stood beside the workstation with perfect posture, her silver hair tied back in the severe Kethery style that suggested she considered stray strands a form of academic failure. "I have prepared baseline readings," she announced as he entered. "I refrained from approaching you in the corridor to avoid contaminating the data." "Appreciated," he said, setting his equipment down. "Let's keep this professional." "My intention precisely." There was a brief pause. Her wristband chimed. "You are still 4 meters away," she noted. "Yet my pulse has elevated by 6%. He pretended that did not make his stomach flip. "All right," he said briskly. "We begin with proximity testing." He activated the holopad. Project, Strange Body Phenomenon. Trial 1, Controlled Distance Exposure. Stand there, he instructed, pointing to a floor marker he had placed earlier. She obeyed instantly. Now I'm going to walk toward you. Report any changes. He took one step. Pulse increasing. Another step. Skin temperature rising. Another. She inhaled slowly. Cognitive focus declining. He stopped half a meter away. The band emitted a sharp, continuous tone. They both looked down at it. Is that good? He asked cautiously. It is intense. Intense medically or intense dangerously? She considered. Undefined. He made a note. Behind the professionalism, however, his awareness had sharpened in ways he did not enjoy analyzing. He could smell the faint citrus note of the sterilizer she favored. He could see the tiny shift in her pupils when she focused on him. Focus, he ordered himself. Science. Next test, he said. Eye contact. She straightened further, if that was even possible. Their gazes locked. 4 seconds passed. 5. 6. She suddenly grabbed the edge of the workstation. My cognitive processes are deteriorating. He jerked back. Deteriorating? I am struggling to remember the Kethery prime sequence. Isn't that like your species' version of counting? Yes. That does sound serious. She blinked rapidly, then looked away. The band softened. How are you feeling? He asked. Curiously disappointed that you broke visual contact. He scribbled another note, refusing to examine why that sentence sent warmth creeping up his neck. All right, he muttered. Moving on. Trial 2, Physical Contact. He stared at the words longer than necessary. Hand? She suggested gently. Hand? He agreed. They reached for each other at the same moment, bumped fingers awkwardly, withdrew, then tried again. When their palms finally aligned, Lyra froze. The band shrieked. She whispered, almost reverently, Symptoms critical. You said that yesterday. They remain critical. Her grip tightened slightly. He became extremely aware of the fact that neither of them was letting go. Describe what you feel, he said, voice a notch quieter than before. Warmth. Electrical sensation along my arm. Reduced desire to be elsewhere. Elsewhere on the station? Elsewhere in existence. He swallowed. That seemed significant. You should release my hand, she said after several seconds. Yes. Good protocol. Neither moved. Finally, he forced himself to step back. She immediately began recording. Human presence effectiveness. She read aloud while typing. Alarmingly high. He blinked. I am not a piece of medical equipment. You are the primary variable. Still feels rude. For the next hour, they tested variations. 2 seconds of contact. 5 seconds. 10. At 12 seconds, Lyra went so still he worried she had fainted. I am fine, she assured him. Simply recalibrating. He added a new category to the chart. Duration sensitivity, confirmed. Somewhere during Trial 7, he noticed something inconvenient. He was enjoying this. Not the panic. Not the mystery. Her. The way she approached each sensation with fearless curiosity. The way her normally measured voice softened when she spoke directly to him. The way she kept drifting half a step closer when she thought he wouldn't notice. He labeled the observation. Researcher bias, monitor closely. Because obviously that was all it was. Obviously. Environmental testing should be next, she declared. You mean, outside the lab? A condition must be observed across varied settings. He hesitated. Then logic won. Fine. Controlled field study. Their first stop was the station's food deck. The lunchtime crowd parted instinctively around Lyra, partly because of her imposing Kethery composure, partly because she walked straight toward Elias and stopped far too close. The band chimed. She ignored the stares. My symptoms persist in populated environments, she reported. A passing engineer leaned toward Elias and whispered, "Did you break her?" "I did not break her. We are conducting medical research," Lyra added loudly. That did not help. Next came the observation dome. Stars spilled endlessly beyond the transparent alloy, quiet and enormous. Lyra stepped beside him. "Not touching. Just close." "My pulse remains elevated," she said softly. He found himself watching the reflected starlight in her eyes. "Maybe it's the view," he suggested. "I examined this dome alone yesterday. No symptoms occurred." Right. Of course she had run a control test. A maintenance drone floated past and paused midair. "Congratulations to the bonded pair," it chirped in a cheerful automated voice. "We are not bonded," Elias said immediately. Lyra frowned at the drone. "Define bonded." "Not now," he muttered. Their final test took them into a quiet corridor. No crowds. No distractions. Just the steady hum of the station. She studied him for a long moment before asking, "If this condition proves permanent, will you remain available for treatment?" The question landed somewhere deeper than he expected. "Yes," he said again, more carefully this time. Her shoulders eased, barely perceptible unless you knew her. "Good," she said. Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. Then she added, almost shyly, "When you are absent, the symptoms do not vanish entirely." He looked at her. "They don't?" "They become duller." Something in his chest tightened. Before he could respond, her band chimed again. She glanced down. "You appear to be standing closer than before," she observed. He hadn't even noticed himself stepping forward. For the first time since this began, a quiet, inconvenient thought surfaced. Maybe he didn't mind being the cause. He cleared his throat. "More data tomorrow," he said. She nodded. But neither of them moved to increase the distance. By the end of the week, the entire station had reached a conclusion that Elias and Lyra continued to reject with impressive determination. Apparently they were together. Elias discovered this when he opened his lab locker and a small wrapped package fell onto his boots. A silver ribbon unraveled across the floor. Lyra leaned down, picked up the attached card, and read it aloud in her calm, clinical voice. "For the couple. May your bond produce many statistically attractive offspring." She paused. "Offspring seems premature." "We are not a couple," Elias said for what felt like the 1,000th time. "Agreed." The maintenance tech across the corridor gave them a thumbs up. Elias shut his locker harder than necessary. The rumors had started subtly, a few glances, some whispering, but after Lyra had loudly informed 3 botanists that she was monitoring potentially fatal reactions to prolonged human proximity, gossip detonated across deck for like a plasma flare. Now it followed them everywhere. The station's matchmaking AI had even begun assigning them adjacent work shifts. Coincidence, Elias told himself. Definitely coincidence. Until the AI rerouted them both to the same recreational corridor labeled Ambience Zone, optimized for interpersonal bonding. Soft lighting glowed along the walls. Somewhere, gentle music started playing. Elias stared upward. "I am going to uninstall that machine." Lyra tilted her head, listening. "My pulse has already increased by 9%. She noted. "That is the lighting's fault. The lighting is not holding my hand." He immediately released her. "I did not realize I was doing that." "You were." She recorded it. He tried not to think about how naturally their fingers had intertwined. Later that day, a veteran cargo pilot cornered him near the docking bay. The man looked him up and down with the knowing expression of someone who had survived 5 wars and at least 3 marriages. "Kid," the pilot said, jerking a thumb toward where Lyra stood analyzing a shipment scanner. "That's not an illness." Elias crossed his arms. "You don't have her medical data. I don't need it." "That right there?" He grinned. "That's love." Elias made a strangled noise. Interspecies romantic bonding is statistically messy, terrifying, inconvenient, the pilot interrupted. Best thing you'll ever risk. I am not risking anything. The pilot just laughed and walked away. Elias told himself the faint unease in his chest was irritation. Nothing more. The next complication arrived disguised as a routine conversation. Lyra found him in the data archives, unusually quiet. There has been a development, she said. He tensed immediately. New symptom? Yes. Severity? Severe. He braced himself. I observed you in the nutrition hall earlier, she continued. You were laughing with the agricultural liaison. Oh. Mara? She told me a story about exploding tomatoes. Lyra's band emitted a rapid string of chimes. My readings spiked to their highest level yet, she said. Because of tomatoes? She looked directly at him. Because your attention appeared transferable. He blinked. I am unsure I approve. Something unfamiliar twisted inside him. Are you saying you were jealous? He asked before he could stop himself. She frowned slightly. Define jealous. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Tried again. It's when you don't like seeing someone you care about focus on someone else. She processed this. Then glanced at her wrist. That aligns with the data. He stared at her. The corridor suddenly felt smaller. Quieter. You care about me? He asked. I have reordered my entire research schedule to maximize our interaction, she said simply. That seems indicative. His heartbeat stumbled. She stepped closer. The band chimed instantly. Additionally, she added, when I believed your attention might permanently shift elsewhere, I experienced a sharp drop in internal equilibrium. Internal equilibrium. Yes. He let out a slow breath. Lyra, I don't think you're sick. She studied his face carefully. Then why does this feel destabilizing? Before he could answer, she asked softly, do you experience abnormalities when I am absent? He froze. Images flickered through his mind, the lab feeling too quiet, meals tasting strangely dull, the way he caught himself looking toward doorways expecting her precise silhouette. Yes, he admitted. Her eyes widened just slightly. You do? I thought it was just researcher habit. Ah, she said, though her tone suggested she did not entirely believe him. That evening, she insisted on a full diagnostic scan. If the condition affects us both, comprehensive analysis is warranted. The medical bay hummed as the scanner passed over them in gentle arcs of light. Elias tried not to feel ridiculous. When the results appeared, Lyra leaned forward first. She read silently. Then again. A third time. Cause identified, she whispered. His stomach dropped. Well? She rotated the display toward him. Primary diagnosis, emotional bond formation. Secondary indicators, mutual attachment response. He stared at the words. Then laughed. Once. Twice. The sound faded quickly when he realized she was not laughing. Is it fatal? She asked. No. Degenerative? Quite the opposite. She considered that, brow faintly furrowed. If this is what humans call love, why does it feel terrifying? He did not have a scientific answer. Because it mattered, he thought. Because losing it would hurt. Because nothing in the universe made you more vulnerable than caring whether someone stayed. He found her still watching him, waiting for clarity the way she always did. For the first time since this began, logic failed him completely. It's terrifying, he said slowly. Because you can't control it. Her gaze dropped briefly to their hands resting on the scanner platform. Without noticing when it happened, their fingers had drifted together again. She did not pull away. Neither did he. My readings are rising, she murmured. Mine too, he admitted. Silence settled between them, deeper than before. Understanding hovered just out of reach, obvious to everyone else on the station, yet somehow enormous and new to them. After a moment, she asked quietly, Should we attempt to cure it? The question struck him harder than he expected. He imagined the lab without her calm observations. The corridors without her matching his pace. The absence of those steady chimes whenever he stepped close. No, he said finally. Her shoulders eased in visible relief. Good, she whispered. Then, almost to herself, I do not wish for the symptoms to cease. For the first time since the diagnosis, they avoided each other. Not dramatically. Not with slammed doors or official declarations. Just small, careful absences. Lyra adjusted her research hours by 12 minutes so their shifts would not overlap. Elias volunteered for maintenance checks on the far side of the station. Messages became shorter. Conversations became technical. It lasted exactly 3 days. On the 4th morning, Elias walked into Laboratory 3 and stopped dead. Lyra was already there. She looked wrong. Not physically. Every strand of silver hair remained in its usual immaculate place, and her posture was as straight as ever. But the stillness around her felt strained, like a structure holding together under too much pressure. Her wristband chimed weakly. You appear fatigued, he said before he could stop himself. My internal equilibrium has been inconsistent, she replied. That sounds like a polite way of saying you feel terrible. She hesitated. Accurate. He set his tablet down slowly. Have the symptoms changed? They have intensified. He blinked. But we've barely been within 10 meters of each other. Correct. Her eyes lifted to his. It would seem absence is not an effective treatment. Something in his chest tightened hard enough to steal his breath. Funny, he said quietly. I was about to report the same result. Silence stretched between them. 3 days had been enough to prove something neither chart nor scanner could properly measure. Finally, he exhaled. Maybe this isn't an illness, he said. Maybe it's a choice. She tilted her head slightly. Explain. Humans don't try to eliminate emotions just because they're inconvenient, he said. We lean into them. Even when they scare us. Why? He gave a small, helpless smile. Because the best things usually do. Her band chimed, stronger this time. You are smiling, she observed. Hazardous, I know. She took one step toward him. Then another. The sound of the lab faded beneath the quiet rhythm of their breathing. I have conducted extensive reflection, she said. Ketheri culture teaches us to avoid variables that disrupt cognitive efficiency. Yet, these past days have demonstrated something unexpected. And what's that? My thoughts were less efficient without you. That might have been the most romantic sentence he had ever heard. She stopped just within arm's reach. You once stated humans embrace emotional risk, she continued. I find that concept increasingly logical. He chuckled softly. Careful. You're starting to sound human. I am learning from an exemplary specimen. Did you just call me a specimen? Yes. He shook his head. Then she said it again, the words that had started everything, but now her voice carried warmth instead of alarm. You make my body feel strange. She paused, studying his expression as if committing it to memory. Do humans typically keep touching the person responsible? He did not answer with words. Instead, he reached forward and took her hand, not experimentally, not cautiously, but deliberately. Her fingers closed around his instantly. The band erupted into its loudest tone yet. They both glanced down, then back at each other. Neither let go. Well, he said lightly, that seems definitive. I should document this. She murmured, already lifting her free hand toward the band. He groaned. Are you seriously recording data during our first intentional romantic moment? Of course. This is groundbreaking xenobiology. You are unbelievable. Correction, she said calmly. I am thorough. He laughed, the sound warmer than it had been in days. Up close, he could see something new in her eyes, not confusion, not clinical curiosity, but something steadier. Courage, maybe? Or trust. Lyra, he said more softly, You know there's no cure for this, right? She nodded. I have reached the same conclusion. And you're okay with that? Another tiny step closer. Their shoulders brushed. My research indicates the benefits outweigh the destabilization. That is the least romantic acceptance speech in history. She considered. Then surprised him by lacing her fingers more firmly through his. I am happy, she said. The words sounded unfamiliar on her tongue, but certain. His throat tightened. Good, he said quietly. Me too. Her band chimed again. She glanced down, then made a final entry. He peered over her shoulder. You named the study? He asked. She angled the display toward him. Long-term effects of loving a human. He barked out a laugh. Subtle. I prefer clarity. Let me guess, I'm still listed as the primary variable. You are now categorized as essential infrastructure. That sounds permanent. It is. For a moment, they simply stood there, hands joined, the station humming softly around them. No alarms. No urgent mysteries. Just the quiet certainty of something new. After a while, she said thoughtfully, primary findings thus far include heightened happiness, increased resilience, and a persistent desire for hand-holding. He lifted their joined hands slightly. Terrible side effect. Severe, she agreed. Footsteps approached the lab entrance, then halted. The door slid open just enough for Commander Threx to peer inside. He took one look at their hands. Grunted. About time, he muttered, and let the door close again. Elias shook his head. We were the last to know, weren't we? Apparently. She studied him for a long moment before asking, more gently than he had ever heard her speak. Human Elias, was the terror worth it? He thought about the fear, the uncertainty, the vulnerability, and then about the way her hand fit so naturally in his. Yes, he said. It always is. Beyond the station's vast observation windows, ships drifted through the dark like slow-moving constellations. Across thousands of map systems and uncountable species, civilizations had mastered faster-than-light travel, terraforming, even the careful rewriting of their own biology. Yet humans remained unusual for one simple reason. They did not treat love as a malfunction. They treated it as the bravest upgrade evolution had ever dared to design. Lyra's band chimed once more. She smiled faintly at the sound now. Symptoms ongoing, she reported. Good, Elias said, tightening his grip just slightly. This was one condition neither of them intended to cure.